all our money. And we spent 2 evenings together to get it back. And that was basically the start of this journey. So what is the problem that I see from the last 5 years? Why does it happen? It's not only people, it's also bad developers, because some of the stuff that we do is we have to check the code. What happened? It's not always a user that forgets his password or sends to the wrong wallet. It's sometimes they add pieces to the password that the software cannot handle. Like, for example, we have a wallet where someone put in a pound sign, and that's the password we know. We can crack it, we see it fits with the hash, but we cannot extract the private key from the software. There's damaged software. We know people that have been diving and they dropped their Trezor or laptop in the water, or they have a ledger that broke, and if you have a ledger and wants to have it fixed, it's not possible. Ledger just sends you a new one, so you're stuck if you forgot the PIN or cannot enter the PIN if one of the button is damaged. And of course there is a lot of stories where people pass away, die. So we have family members that call us and say, you know, my dad died in his sleep, and I put on his laptop and then I saw a Bitcoin core with 50 Bitcoin. So what do I do now? I have no idea. So we get the person's, you know, info. We sometimes we get access to the email or their laptop, and we search for clues. What kind of use cases do we have? What kind of wallets are there problems? I would basically say all of wallets and all of hardware has problems. Some of the cases that I can mention is like people have Multibit Classic, which is no longer supported, and they have the words, or they have the actual wallet, they have the password. They try to use some GitHub repo to recover it with some JavaScripts, and the wallet is empty. They don't know why. Or if some of you used blockchain.com in the early days, you just had a name for login. That is not possible anymore. So people who transferred a lot of funds to blockchain.com in 2012 or 13, suddenly they made an upgrade, and there is no support for that. They just claim, you know, we don't do that. We've been trying to contact blockchain.com many times, and they say there is no problem. You have MetaMask, which doesn't support Bitcoin, but still it's crypto. And MetaMask is like really, really bad code. When you run out of space on your phone or on your computer, MetaMask gets fragmented, and you cannot use the wallet anymore. We've seen cases where people have multiple copies of the wallet, like on a phone and on a computer, and sometimes it's a forced upgrade, and when they upgrade, it also upgrades the phone, and suddenly from having, you know, 10 million USDC on MetaMask, they have 0, and they know, what do we do now? And my wife washed my pants with words, or we cleaned the garage and where I stored my keys, and they're gone. What do we do now? And finally, there is hardware failures, like people forget login to their laptops. So we do that sometimes. We even do like password for Macs with cheat chips that basically you cannot crack, but you can. Or if you have a Trezor that you forgot your PIN, or you have lost the like the words, so you don't remember them. When you lost the PIN, then you can use the words to recover it. And we do like hardware recovery. So basically, we take the Trezor, put it apart, do some side channel attack where we build some hardware and send signals to the Trezor. And what happens is bypass the security. And of course, there's an upgraded version of Trezor that blocks that. But then, of course, there's new cases where you can bypass that as well. So it's basically looking for errors, looking for how to solve the problem where people actually lost their keys or passwords. So who is KeychainX? Who I am? Why do I do this? So basically, I started coding in early 90s, late 80s. I was doing a lot of assembly hacking, like very low key, and I was still a teenager, so I was breaking passwords for fun. And then I went out of it for a long time. And then in 2017, a friend of mine asked me, like, Robert, I have some money I made on the stock exchange, I would like to invest, and why don't you figure something out? And then this happened with this ledger, and I told him, maybe we should recover passwords. I know how to recover passwords from my past. And he said, sure, let's do that. So there was him and some of his friends in California that gave us some funds in the beginning. So we started the company, and that's where we are right now. We used to be incorporated in the US, and now we have moved to Switzerland for various reasons. What else do? We also, when people have a problem with the wallet, we go back to GitHub repos to see older versions of the wallets. Like one case that we had was someone had an Android phone with the Bitcoin wallet, and when the version changed, even if they have the password and they have the wallet, they cannot recover it because the encryption changed and it's not supported. It's very hard to contact the core developers. So we backward engineer, check how the wallet was encrypted, and hopefully we solve it. So we have maybe a ratio of like 50-50 of solving cases. We also write our own tools. You probably know, or maybe you don't know, there are some tools like BTC Recover or Hashcat that are open source and people can download them and try to use them themselves. But what they don't know is like there is bugs in those as well. So if you have a blockchain.com version 1 wallet that you used to create, you have the correct password, you get a negative on Hashcat. So even though you know it, you find the password, it doesn't work. For BTC Recover, it's pretty good, but it's Python, so it's very slow. It doesn't use the full capacity of what you can put into crack wallets, so we like pimp them. So we take the code, we improve it, we add support for like multi-GPUs or change the memory usage, and sometimes we can get like 1000x of what BTC Recovery can do. We also build our own custom-built software, so hardware. So for, let's say, Trezor, like a use case, someone forgets the PIN, so we need to open the Trezor. We need to remove some capacitors, then we wire some wires and connect to it, have an oscilloscope, send signals, and depending on the version of the software, on the Trezor, it's possible to recover the 24 words or the PIN. So probably most of you have seen the movie on YouTube by the guy that recovered $2 million from an old Trezor, but that was a version, I think, 1.6 of the bootloader. And after that, they changed the algorithm, and you can even, if you do it yourself, you can brick the Trezor. So it's improvement, but still you can reset the brick and you can break the Trezor as well. So what have we done because of those problems? People come and ask us, like, do you have a solution, or what should we do instead? So we came up with an idea of a keyless wallet that we started to work on in 2019, which I'm going to tell a bit more later. We can talk something about that. Yeah, so it's basically a wallet that takes your biometrics or your geometrics. It's two parts, or you can mix them. And some of the key features is that we take your geolocation, like 50 by 50 meter squares, and we can solve or add to that your biometrics, like your fingerprint, and together you create a private key. So basically, if you remember why you created your wallet, let's say yesterday at the bar, we create a wallet and we put some Bitcoin in it, and whenever we're there, we can recover it only when we're there. So you know we always have funds in that restaurant. And how does recovery work? When someone has a problem, they usually give us a file, or they give us a paper. So it's all kind of forms, or they send us the laptop. And the laptop or the file is encrypted with a password, or it's fragmented, or it's a hard drive that we need to scan the sectors. We have a server in-house. We don't use any cloud storages. We don't use Amazon, Google Cloud. We don't rent out space. Everything is just in one place, in Warsaw, in Poland. And then we initiate, and then we distribute the representation of the wallet. It's called a hash. And then we run the service. So it's basically a very time-consuming job. And the fastest wallet we've been recovered like in 1 minute. And the longest, I think, was in November. We helped a family in the US to recover an Ethereum pre-ICO wallet from 2015. That wallet was 8 years old, and we had it for over 4 years. And how we basically recovered it is we have a discussion with the owner that they give us hints or clues, the composition of the password. That was an encrypted file. And I worked together with Max. We probably met him a few times. So Max went to San Francisco and met them. And nothing happened. Another year passed. And I almost gave up, because usually when you work for something for many years, you think it's not possible, something is wrong, it doesn't work. And then Max convinced me, Robert, let me travel again and see how it works. And basically it worked out because that person gave us a clue that we didn't think about before. So even if you have a first run with someone about their hints, that might be the older hints. So you need to go back and forth a few times and see if you find something new that they didn't think about in the beginning. Some statistics we can be discussed. There's some reports by Chain Analysis that 20% of all Bitcoin or crypto is lost. So if you put that in numbers, that's about 250 billion. We have probably $1 billion worth of locked funds in different wallets, so that's not even a percentage of that. We have opened over 500 wallets to date. On a good day, I think the record is 10 wallets in a day. But then sometimes nothing happens for a few weeks, and you have the average, which is pretty good. How do we work on fees? We don't charge anything. No success, no fee. And usually we charge 20% of the funds that we recover. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Depends on the case, depends on the value, depends on how long time it took us to open it. And sometimes we get a tip. So it happened we opened a wallet for someone and the guy said, just take another 10% because, it was worth $100 when I got it, and now it's worth 250,000. So he was very happy. I think I bypassed something. No. So what will we do in the future to improve? Because basically this is what you need to do. We learn every week. We check out the new source codes, and there's new versions of the wallets coming out. So we look at that. We have found a guy who used a password learning tool. I don't know if you know Jan, and he recovered 10% more passwords than before. So we're talking to him to find new patterns in passwords. So basically what it is, it's not just a brute force that you put in a lot of GPU or CPU power to break a password or encryption. It's also how you create or generate the mask or the algo that finds the password. And also there is some hashes, like for the new wallets for Ethereum, there's a script that requires a lot of memory that is very slow. So for those today, if you have a script-free wallet, we can maybe check 8 passwords a second. But if it's an old multibit or blockchain.com wallet that is very fast, we can do maybe 10 billion passwords a second. So basically what it is we're looking for ways to improve the hardware, to find new ways how we can store the hash. Some hashes are very memory intensive, so you cannot use GPUs, you need to use a CPU. And of course GPUs got improved, but let's say you have a CUDA GPU card with 2000 CUDA cores. Each CUDA core needs the memory for each jack. So if the hash needs, like, I don't know, 10 or 20 megabyte, you need a pretty good GPU card. So basically, I'm not going to go into details with the wallet we're developing. We have a work in progress name called XMax. It checks where in the world you are, use some of your biometrics. We have used different things you can measure for the biometrics. We have some things that are not possible today, but we've added them to the patent. It's like taking a blood sample from your DNA, or check your odor, like your smell. I think I had a chat yesterday with a gentleman about making an app like Tinder for smelling, because if you think someone smells good, maybe it's a good partner mix. If it smells bad, you shouldn't have kids with them. So more about that another time. What kind of patents do we have? Basically, we have them covered the whole world. We filed in the US with the USPTO in 2019. We got it granted last year or 2 years ago. The EPO, the European one, is very hard to get, so we just got approval this month. We filed it for many countries worldwide, so we got it in Nigeria, Brazil, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Turkey. And we also filed a separate one in Japan that we also got last year. So basically it's pretty much covered. And the key features, I already mentioned those. The work in progress, or the first version of the app is on Android. We're thinking of making a version of on a Linux that some people are trying to store keys. We talked to some guys that they took a Linux version on a Chinese phone, and they store the keys there because they don't want to use iOS, or they don't want to use Android because they snoop on you. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about. If you have any questions, you can ask me or just send an email. And if you want to grab a t-shirt or a sticker, they're on the back. And I'm going to be here today. I'm leaving tomorrow, so if you want to chat, we'll be around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do we have some questions for Robert? Anybody?
Thanks for the insightful talk. So you said Trezor is quite easy to open up.
Well, it depends who you ask. If it's easy, it's a measure, right? So is it easy for you or is it easy for me? It depends which bootloader it is. It can take from 1 minute to a few months.
Okay, so what other hardware wallets would you recommend we should explore?
Recommend for storing crypto?
Yeah.
I mean, Trezor is pretty good. I mean, if you're careful, if you use a passphrases are not stored on the device. So a lot of people do that. So even if we can find the words, if you have a very, very good passphrase, it's still a lot of work for us, but then it's still doable. Ledger, has a different system. They have a closed system. It's still possible to do ledger, but if it will be less than a couple million, it's not worth it because it's very time consuming and you need to rent a lab. And it's basically the same thing with everything. I mean, even banks that are very secure, they can break into them and people do heists. So I wouldn't like to recommend anything. If you get a Trezor and you're happy with it, keep on doing it. If you have a ledger, keep the ledger.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any more questions? Nobody?
Just a quick one. About Ledger and their password system they proposed recently, which created an uproar. What's your view on that?
I think it's very stupid, and they probably did that because they wanted to comply with the US, that they wanted to put people's passwords in the cloud so they could control them. And I think it was pressure from the upper management, and they didn't talk to the technicians. So that's one of the reasons I wouldn't use Ledger, except of some other reasons.
Okay. Anyone? No more questions? Okay, then thank you very much, Robert.